What's up, y'all? Builtendo here. I'm going to do a quick video today on my lunch break, and I'm just going to be going over a couple things that I absolutely hate about motherfudging GameStop, because fuck them. That's why. Terrible, terrible business. Let's just hop right at it. The first thing I want to get into, obviously, is probably the most well-known, which is their Circle of Life program. As a customer, you may not be 100% aware of this. However, the employees are subjected to what is called the Circle of Life. Now, officially, they have discontinued this program, but if you speak to anyone that works at GameStop, it is very much still in effect. It just doesn't carry that name anymore. So, what it is there's a Circle of Life for a video game. And what they want you to do is pre-order a new game there. And you buy it from them. And then when you're finished with that game, you trade it in. Now, after you trade it in, you get store credits or discounts on other used games. Now you get these other used games, and then eventually you trade those in as well and use that money towards a pre-order on another new game. Now, it sounds like a good deal. However, the way it is set up, you actually get screwed pretty bad. For one thing, the majority of GameStop's business comes from used games, obviously, and they have this really sketchy record with the way they do things, because a new game on average sells for around $60, so they're going to make about 20 cents on the dollar for that game, whereas a used game, they only pay like $2 to $5 for it. Sometimes less than that, depending on the game. And then they resell these games sometimes for even more than new games, and we'll get into that a little bit later. The customers end up getting screwed over in this because you don't get anything for your trade-in. And they try to bump it up with their power-up rewards card, and that obviously doesn't work, because in order for the power-up rewards card to do you any benefit, you pay $15 for it, and you get a subscription to their magazine, which is basically saying, hey, I'm going to pay you $15 to send me junk mail every month to try to get me to buy your products. You get a discount on used games. However, after you deduct the $15, you need to spend over $200 with GameStop in order to even save $5. And that's $200 in used games. That's a lot of used games, unless you're buying a couple of AAA titles that they've severely jacked up the price on. Speaking of which, we went to GameStop last weekend, I believe it was, to get a power cord for an Xbox 360 I was selling, because I have a couple extras that I picked up. They told me they didn't have the power cord. They only had one for another model of the 360, which was bullshit. It's the same cord. I just said, fuck it. I'm not going to argue with this dude. But my son actually got pretty mad because they had a Pokemon game on the shelf in a plastic bag for $65-$70, and it's just a loose DS or Game Boy cartridge. The thing is, I have an app on my phone, of course, that tells you how much a game is actually worth to people like me, people that are buying the games and playing the games, and collecting the games. And what we do is, when we buy games, we input them into this app, and it gives you an average price of the value of the game by what people are legitimately paying. Now, the loose price of this game was about $25. Complete in the box, it was probably $50. But GameStop is selling it for $65-$70 just in a plastic bag. And my son was very upset about this, because he knows he was that kid that traded in that game at some point, and GameStop gave him $1 for it. And that's really a big thing on what they do. Most of their business practices are centered around screwing over children and adults that don't really know what's going on as far as games go. Uh, I don't know if you guys remember when the NES Classic Mini came out. It was a pretty big deal. Nintendo sold out of them immediately. Nintendo never makes enough of anything for the most part, which good for them. They control the supply and demand of their products. And the NES Classics retailed at $60. Now, it actually took me like 2 years to get a hold of one. And that was actually after they started making them again. And I ended up buying it at Walmart. Well, GameStop, according to their website, sold out immediately, had none. And then a month later, they found in a warehouse a huge surplus of them. So what actually happened was GameStop ordered all of these and then said, we're actually not going to sell them. We're going to wait because we know that there's only a certain amount of them. And they did. They waited a good solid month or two. Now, what a lot of people might not know is that the website ThinkGeek is owned by GameStop. So these actually went on sale on the ThinkGeek website and not on GameStop's website. Now, here's the kicker. What they did was, with each one, they threw in one of their pieces of junk. One of them was the Tetris bundle. And the Tetris bundle was basically a Tetris lamp about yay big with just a box that lit up. Now, because it was the Tetris bundle, GameStop sold this for $130. If you bought the NES Classic for $60, you could buy this lamp from their website, the same website, for $10. But they decided to charge $120, $130 for this, and they had bundles like this all the way up to $170, which is insane. Problem with that being, you could not buy it by itself for $60, the suggested retail price. They only sold it in their bundles. So basically what they were doing was hoarding and price gouging. Number 3 among us today is Xenoblade Chronicles, which was not a hotly anticipated game, but quite a few people did want it. It wasn't one of the most anticipated games ever. If you didn't pre-order it, they did not give it to you. They told you they were sold out, and that's a common business practice at GameStop, is they only order copies of new games that are pre-ordered, because they're trying to get you into this cycle of thinking if you don't pre-order a game, you will not be able to purchase this game at all. So that's what they did with Xenoblade Chronicles. However, they were the exclusive distributor. They were the only ones you can get this game from. So what did GameStop do? They waited 6 months. And they stripped every copy. They opened every brand new copy because this thing retailed for $60. So there's a market for this game now, because if you didn't pre-order it, you couldn't get it because you could only get it from them, and they wouldn't sell copies unless you pre-ordered it. So they opened every copy, they marked them as used, and then sold them for $90 instead of $60, because they don't have any restrictions on how much they can sell a used game for as opposed to a new game. So think about that for a minute. If you pre-ordered it and paid $60, you got the game. If you did not pre-order, they sold it to you as used for $90. So that's shit. Also, GameStop is absolutely the only company, number 4, that gets paid for pre-orders. Developers and distributors actually pay them for pre-orders. If they have games coming from Square Enix pays them by how many pre-orders they get, which is part of their circle of life and why they try to push pre-orders on you so much every single time you go in there. Number 5, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a Deus Ex game. Deus Ex, I'm not 100% certain on how to say it, it's Latin. Anyway, so this game is highly anticipated. GameStop has pre-orders for it. Everybody's selling this game. And at the time, there was an online cloud gaming service called OnLive. Actually, I should do a video on OnLive because I really, really have a lot of respect for what they tried to do so early on. They just were way ahead of their time and people weren't ready for it. But, you know, anyway, so the company that developed Deus Ex had a partnership with OnLive. Well, the thing is, GameStop was trying to develop their own platform at the time for online gaming. And each Deus Ex game came with a code inside of it for free content on OnLive. GameStop ordered all employees to open every game, take that paper out, and throw it away. Those codes were never redeemed. They got caught for it later on, and their actual statement was, "We don't care, we're not promoting any competition." So if you bought that game from GameStop, you got ripped off because there were content that you were entitled to by purchasing that game, content added by the developer that they took from you. So, you know, their business practices are shit. So here, number 6 on my list is the great GameStop hack. Now, you may not have heard about it, and there's a reason for that. Now, we all remember a couple years ago the PlayStation Network hack. Somebody hacked into it. PlayStation went out. They were like, "Hey, we got hacked. You know, protect all your private information." They got credit card numbers, blah, blah, blah. All big companies get hacked. It happens. It's what you do with the next step that shows if you are an honest company or not. Because PlayStation jumped right out there and said, "Hey, we got hacked. You shall lock down your information just in case." GameStop.com got hacked. So it was actually only 6 months later that anyone found out that this actually happened, because GameStop would not reveal this information, nor did they ever fully admit to it. A security company that they hired to revamp their website 6 months later discovered this and discovered that most of the credit card numbers from their website were stolen. And GameStop released a statement saying, "We may have been hacked and maybe you should look into it." 6 months later. So all of the damage would have well been done by then, and people would have had no idea how they got hacked, but it happened from GameStop.com. Cheers to them for being assholes. All right, number 7. You may find this weird, I do, but the CEO and the top 10 executives for GameStop actually do not play video games. Not currently or ever. In interviews, they have all stated that they don't play video games. That should tell you something. You're buying your video games from a company structured with nothing to do with video games, just marketing. Anything to get your money, they don't care. Number 8, they sell you warranties. You know, maybe $3 for a game. If something happens, you can exchange it. Here's the thing. They make it almost impossible. You can't use your power-up card to look up the warranties. You cannot warranty a game without a receipt. Blah, blah, blah. They make you jump through so many hoops that it is not worth it. It's not even better than their current return policy, which means you're just getting the current return policy, but you're paying for it. They are making you pay for the option to return something if something's wrong with it. Now, this is going to be my last one, number 9. This is the biggest one for me. Without a doubt, 100%, GameStop does not sell new games. Every game GameStop has is used. And let me tell you why. Number 1, a new game to me is I go to the store, I pick it off the shelf. I pay for it. I go home. I open this game. I take the disc out. I put it in and I play it. That's a new game. You cannot do that at GameStop. Every game has what they call been gutted. They open every single game, remove any content that they don't like the on live subscriptions, DLC. They take the game out of the case and they put it behind the counter and put an empty box on the shelf. Hey man, you opened that game. It's not new anymore. Are you going to tell me that loaf of bread is new after you opened it and took 2 slices out and then put 2 slices back in it? I'm supposed to say, hey, that's still new bread? No, man, that's used bread. You touched it. And my second point on this is the employees take the games home and play them. Talk to almost any GameStop employee. This is a fact. Not all do, but almost all do. So chances are your game has already been played. If my game has been opened, it has been removed, it has been played, it is absolutely not new. So as I started off with, GameStop, who cares? They're a dying business that's predicated on predatory business practices and ripping off children and people that don't know what the value of things actually are. So screw them. Can't wait for them to go out of business. I may do another video on this later because there's just so much to cover. All right. Y'all have a good day. See you later.